Hey, it is now very late, but we are at the final part of this week's reviews. Lots of books this week. But final part, not DC stuff, not Marvel stuff. Those are in the previous two parts of this week's reviews. So this video, we are going to start with Swords of Sorrow, issue number 4, the big dynamite woman crossover written by Gail Simone. And yeah, we're reaching, I guess, the end of the second act here. By the end of this book, basically the whole squad gets together, and a big portion of this book is just people joining other people to recruit even more people. So not much to go in there. Not much to go in right there. But this is what we're left with all the team finally together, the whole trinity of Sonia, Vampirella, and Tharja there, backed up by every other heroic woman in the Dynamite universe, pretty much all facing against Lady Hell, who decides it's best to back off for now. Um, before that, though, we also get some backstory. We get backstory as to who the traveler is and what her history is with the prince. And we find out that she is in fact the evil witch from fairy tales. That she was the one who separated the prince and Snow White, and then the prince decided to punish her and was especially cruel. And I mean, we still don't. And then his cruelty forced like Snow White was like, dude, that goes too far, and Snow White left him for being too cruel, and so that kind of explains why he hates women now, because one woman tried to take him away from his true love, and then the other woman left him because he's a big asshole. So there you go. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, just kind of rounding out the the second act rather. The traveler joins the fray. She decides to interfere directly, and then the whole team gets together in that panel I already showed you. So yeah, kind of just ticking away at this point. There's some really good lines, really good scenes when certain people meet other certain people, but plot-wise, this is just kind of an epoxy thing. You know, it's not an actual brick; it's just the mortar rather that's tying Act One and Act Two and Act Three together. But next issue should be very fun. The beginning of Act Three, the kind of climax, so to speak. So, gonna hopefully enjoy that. Next up is Injection, issue number 4, and I've said previously that this book was going a bit slow. Warren Ellis is clearly doing a kind of a slow burn on this book, but I feel with this issue, the story is finally getting in gear, finally getting its things together. This is the first issue of this comic where after it ended, I just wanted more. Like I was like, oh come on, I need like two more pages, come on. We're finally getting to something really good, you know? Um, so if you've been hesitant on this book, again, I'd still probably recommend waiting for the trade, just because I have a feeling this is going to be a slow burn. But issue 4, if you've been waiting for, if you've been if you picked up issues 1 through 3 and you're wondering, okay, when I think it's really going to get going, issue 4 is the book that will make you very impatient for the next one, for issue 5. Um, a big part of that is we finally get really deep into the creation of the injection. We have a flashback with the entire team kind of talking about what to do. Their goal is making the future essentially, and they decide that to make the future, in order to keep things interesting, they are going to build an alien AI with a ghost powering it. So like a ghost alien AI sort of thing, and that eventually turns into the injection. I'm guessing. Um, we also find out just a bit more about how the injection works. In the last issue, we found out that the injection works largely by turning folklore real, by turning fairy tales and fantasy creatures into real life things and disrupting like nature and the laws of physics by doing that. That it likes to play games. And we find out in this issue that Maria Kilgrave, her, who's shaping up to be one of the primary characters, one of the it's basically the Maria and Rob show. That's Rob. If you haven't been keeping up, found out that Maria's been doing a lot of the hunting. Um, she's dealt with a lot of what the injection has been doing, and she has been putting an end to it. And she is an incredibly valuable asset for doing that, for being able to know what's going on and meet the meet the injection step by step, and kind of challenge it and win a few times even. So yeah, I am really liking this book. It is really smart. This is also the issue I feel where Warren Ellis kind of sets up the conflict in this book. It takes place in one of the flashbacks, and the team is still trying to decide, what they're going to do to make the future more interesting. And Rob kind of spells out the whole conflict of the book, I feel, in this panel here. If you can't read it, it says, "A huge part of human history is just about us trying to survive the speed of nature." Because everyone else is like, oh, we've already conquered nature. Nature's going too slow. And so that's why this team is made, in order to kind of speed up the future. And Rob says, no, we're still trying to catch up. Nature is still too fast for us. And throughout all of human history, we've been trying to keep up with nature, and we still are, which is kind of setting up. It's a man versus nature story. If you know about kind of conflicts in storytelling traditions, you have man versus man, man versus nature, man versus world, and then as you get into modernism and postmodernism, you have man versus machine, man versus mob, man versus kind of culture, or like man versus storytelling. It gets weird, but this seems to be kind of a classic man versus nature story. Um, Obviously, we've already touched on the concept of hubris in this book, with these characters being these geniuses that have kind of overstepped their boundaries in creating the injection, and now have to deal with the fallout of that. I'm really liking this story, and I appreciate the slow burn. Um, but now that we're actually getting somewhere, now that the burn is finally heating up, I can appreciate it even more. This book is getting me really excited, and I really, unless you really need a pure drip of action, like every second there has to be something, then I can heavily recommend this book. It's shaping up to be something really special. Next up, we have another indie darling of mine, Ody-C by Matt Fraction. This is what issue are we on now? Issue 6. That's a 6. The font's not exactly. Anyway, and we're starting kind of an entirely new story here, where before we were following a story very heavily influenced by, well, the Ody-C. This seems to be influenced by Matt Fraction's kind of own admission at the back, by a combination of many different mythos. So we have a little bit of we still have kind of the Greek stuff. Our main character in this arc seems to be the this universe's male version of Helen of Troy. Someone, this incredibly like attractive person who's wanted throughout the land, and whose kind of acquisition and being traded around eventually started the war in this book. And we start off with him reading a lot of other stories. We start off with him reading 2 stories, both about rape, and they're presented. I feel like I said that a bit too casually. That's what happens. We start with this guy reading a story as he's waiting for Queen N, or Enna, to marry him, or to whatever, just be with him. And he's reading a story. The first one is about Heracles raping a wolf woman. Heracles is also still male. He wasn't gender bent in this story, but we see him reading that. And after Heracles rapes the wolf woman, the woman tells Heracles a story about another rape, this time about the rape of the goddess Inanna. And this is from, Matt says what story this is from at the back of the book, but I I can't find it right now. I don't want to get too distracted by that. But yeah, it's the wolf woman tells Heracles another rape story as a warning about Heracles' actions. Um, and then that story then becomes a story of that seems to be more inspired by Remus and Romulus, the kind of the Roman, the Remus and Romulus were two brothers raised by a wolf, and Romulus founded the city of Rome, and that's kind of the creation myth of the city of Rome. And so the wolf woman gives birth to Heracles' sons, who are brothers who end up being more important later on in the story. It gets kind of confusing and hard to follow. You can definitely, if you're reading, you can definitely see the 1001 Nights influence there, that each story kind of fluidly leads into the next story. It's a bunch of storytellers telling stories to other storytellers who then tell stories. And but in the main, I guess, kind of framing story, the story that isn't just somebody else's story in this book, is we follow the male Helen of Troy character as he's snatched away from Troia, from his queen, and taken to this other place that is full of men. And of course, it was established earlier on in this book that men are not part of this universe anymore. So he is now out of his universe, essentially. And he's trying to fit in. He's used to being an object of attention. He's used to people wanting him around because he was an attractive male in a world where men at all were rare. And now he's on a world full of men, and he's trying to fit in and see, well, what can I do now that I'm not special here? And that's who we'll be following for, I'm guessing, the rest of this arc. Of course, with all these other stories entwined and mixed in. It's very, very interesting. It's hard to follow. I mean, that's the thing. It's not hard to follow like some books because it's badly written. It's hard to follow structurally because you have this very. It's like a river. Everything's flowing into each other, and if you're not paying attention, it can be kind of hard to keep track. Okay, who's telling the story now? Like, what story am I in? What level of story? It's kind of like what's that movie? Leonardo DiCaprio, Christopher Nolan, Inception. It's very late, guys. I'm very tired. It's like Inception in that way, where everything's kind of flowing into the next thing, and if you're not really paying attention, you're like, okay, so like when did this turn into this? Which is kind of the point of 1001 Nights, because it's about Scheherazade trying to basically stall her way into living by telling these stories that lead into other stories and just kind of entertaining. Well, I haven't read it in its entirety, 1001 Nights, but what I have read I've really enjoyed, and it's like a very interesting just framing device with Scheherazade. And I recommend 1001 Nights, I guess I'm trying to say. But also Ody-C, it's very good, and it's trying new things. It's something that I haven't really seen done in other comics. And I'm guessing that is because of the subject matter. It is kind of translating these classic texts into comic books in its own way. It's doing something really special, and it's doing it very well. I'm really enjoying it, and so I recommend it a lot. And the last book I picked up this week, an issue one that I heard about only earlier today and got really excited about because I think the conceit is very good. Americatown. And the conceit of this book is that it's the future, it's the near future, and the American economy is completely fucked up. And so Americans are leaving America and illegally immigrating to other countries, such as in this issue, Buenos Aires. And Buenos Aires is a country in this book with a booming economy, and there's American refugees, essentially. They don't want to be in America. There are no jobs in America now. And so they're escaping illegally to these other countries, to Cuba, to Buenos Aires. And it's just such a great premise for a story that I had to pick up the first issue. Unfortunately, I feel a bit let down. And this is unlike Ody-C, which is hard to follow in a different way. This is just hard to follow because I don't feel the story is well told. We start off on a boat that's transporting people from America to these other countries, and there's a lot of characters, and they're not properly introduced, and it's hard for us to tell when they're on the boat, and then later on, once they finally made it to Buenos Aires, like, are they still on the boat? Are they in one of these houses in Buenos Aires? It's just hard to follow which characters are where, and then when and how they get to where they are. Like I said, we start off on a boat. Midway through, there's a car chase. We never see these characters leaving the boat. There's one character who's locked up somewhere in the boat and then is moved to a basement somewhere, and we never see that move happen. It's just very hard to follow what's going on and where people are going and how they're getting there in this first issue, which makes the story it's very difficult, and I didn't enjoy reading it, which is disappointing because I really do like the premise. I think I'll pick up one more issue. I'll try rereading this. I'll pick up the next issue and read that. And if I still can't follow what's going on, then that's just a deal breaker. If I can't follow the story, I'm not going to enjoy it. Why would I bother reading it? But I'll try reading it one more time again, maybe tomorrow. I'll pick up the second issue, see if that gets any better. It's a story I really want to like, and there are elements of this book, just of this issue, that I did. I think the dialogue's very strong. I like the art. But there's definitely going to have to be clear storytelling if this is something I'm going to actually want to read in, for 8 issues. So that is that, kind of ending on a low note. But again, I think it's a great idea, and I really want to see it succeed. So, yeah, I'll spend $4 more on this, I guess. And that is finally it for this week in comics. 14 books read and reviewed. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a like. Helps me out. If you want to, please subscribe, and makes numbers get up. I like watching numbers go up. You like watching numbers goes up. Why not make a number go up and enjoy watching that? I'm really tired right now. Yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. And if you're interested in any of the DC or Marvel books that came out, like I said, previous videos, please watch those. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next week for more comic book reviews.